Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mr. Curley. Today we're going to be talking about the Columbian Exchange. Today or tomorrow, Ms. Reel is also going to be posting a video on the Columbian Exchange from Crash Course. I encourage you to watch that. That's going to go into a little bit more in-depth of what we're going to cover. So you get some good information from that, as usual with John Green videos. So what we're going to do today is just cover a short review of the material that we covered in class to give you the what, when, and the impact of the events. Basically, what the Columbian Exchange was cultural and biological trade between the old world and the new world. This exchange had been going on within the old world for thousands of years, starting from when the first group of people actually wandered out of Africa and went into Asia and Europe. They brought with them their ideas, and then later on with the formations of the great empires of the ancient world, these cultures came in contact with each other once again, and they traded everything: food, clothing, ways of life, diseases, people. It just did not involve the New World because no one knew it existed. After Columbus set sail in 1492 and helps discover the New World, this all changes. The people who were living in the New World had not had contact with anybody in the Old World for at least 15,000 years. From what we can judge best. So they had developed a completely different set of cultures, diet, ways of life. So when Columbus comes along, when the next thing you know, hey, we're seeing new things and we're bringing new things, new ideas, different things. And as in what still happens today, you take your stuff with you when you move. You'll take your food with you. You'll take the way you dress with you. And you may adapt, but the people that you are moving to, they may adapt as well. So that's what's going on. People are exchanging food, culture, ideas, disease, and people. When we talk about the old world, remember we're talking about Europe, Africa, and Asia, sometimes called Afro-Eurasia, and particularly in some of the readings. The New World is the Americas. That's North America, South America, the Caribbean islands, Greenland, and some of the other small islands that are off the coast of both places. Obviously, it's named after Columbus because he is the discoverer of the New World. If he hadn't, and he started the Columbian Exchange with the Caribbeans. So when is this going on? Obviously, this starts around 1492 and runs through the 1800s. This runs through the entire age of exploration and discovery. This was the main time for it. The Columbian Exchange is no longer going on. What we have more is a worldwide cultural exchange that's going on today. One of the things we're seeing, we're right now in the midst of one of these things that happens with these exchanges with the coronavirus. The coronavirus starts in China, and through the movement of goods and people, it's now made its way pretty much around the entire world. I think the only people who probably don't have it are those who are staying in Antarctica. So the basic impact of this, and again, this is very short and compact, is that both the old world and the new world were irreversibly changed. It changed everyone's diet. For instance, the main food staple in Ireland after the Columbian Exchange came to be the potato. Well, the potato did not come from Ireland. It comes from the New World. And yet it dominated the diet for the people in Ireland, so much so that when the crops failed in the late 1800s, millions of people starved because they had nothing else. The potato had supplanted pretty much every other thing they grew. Western civilization goes on to become the world's most dominant culture, a position it still holds today. Native populations and cultures of the Americas were devastated. So in 1492, Europe had only about 60 million people in that. And between the two continents, North and South America, there was roughly twice that many people living in the New World. By 1800, the population of Europeans had more than doubled to 150 million. And the Americas, they had less than 25 million Native Americans remaining. Today, you're looking at, in the United States and North America and South America, Canada, all those countries together, there are roughly 1 billion people of European descent, while there are still less than 70 million people of Native American descent. So their population still has not recovered. Most of the loss of population was not due to war, but was due to disease, because they had been separated from us for so long, um, that any natural immunities they may have had to diseases that were present in Europe and Africa and Asia, they no longer had or never developed. So when the Europeans show up, it immediately starts killing people. So roughly 90% of those who died during the Columbian Exchange was as the result of disease, not warfare or taking over. And then one of the other impacts, and I didn't put it on here because it's a little more complicated, but I will talk about it. One of the other impacts was the implementation of slavery and permanent slavery in the United States. Because what happened is when Columbus comes over and all these other people come over and they start settling this land permanently, what they find is that they cannot use the native population for labor because of the disease. They're dying so rapidly and in such large numbers that it's not economically viable to use them for large scale labor. So, what they decide to do is, well, Africans have been exposed to the same diseases we have been exposed to. They have the same levels of immunity. They can survive just as well as we have. So what we will do is we'll take slaves from Africa and bring them to the United States. This is an impact. This is both an event within and an impact of the Columbian Exchange. Okay, now as you're looking at it, you should see a little diagram called the Columbian Exchange. And this is a diagram of basically giving you some basic things of what's moving from one place to the other. So keep in mind, the old world by far, taking into account the diseases they sent to the new world, got the much better end of the deal. The old world were sending over some foodstuffs: wheat, sugar, rice, coffee, beans, things that they ate from their diet that the people who move there are going to want to grow and eat themselves, but also to grow and send back to the markets in the mother country. They also bring over livestock, horses, cows, and pigs. This is another way that the Columbian Exchange changed cultures over a vast expanse. If you think of our traditional view of what a Native American is, we think of the Plains Indians riding the horses and following the buffalo. Well, until the Columbian Exchange happened, this is not how they hunted or lived. There were no horses, there were no large pack animals. So they were nomadic, but they were basically walking everywhere. Once the horse comes along, it greatly expands the territory that they can cover and the animals that they can follow. Then we, of course, we send over horrific diseases, usually not on purpose, most of the time by accident. Back in those days, before the advent of modern medicine, what had happened when you got bacterial diseases or viruses is you either got better or you died. If you got better, you had immunity to it. You could still be carrying the germ, you just would not get sick from it anymore. When these people came over, they were bringing with them smallpox, measles, the flu, typhus, cholera, a whole host of diseases. Whereas the New World was pretty much disease free, at least as far as the major killers. Those are all going to come from the Old World. The New World was sending over new kinds of foodstuffs. So, for instance, corn, potatoes, beans, cocoa beans. Most importantly for a lot of people was the tomato, that thing we think of as Italian cooking with pizza and spaghetti and tomato sauce. That's a rather new invention that doesn't happen until the Columbian Exchange. Tomatoes are from parts of Mexico. Precious metals, those things everybody's looking for. They're looking for God, gold, and glory. They found a whole lot of gold, particularly in South America. And then the one thing that they did send that ends up being as bad for the Europeans as the diseases was for South Americans and North Americans was tobacco. That is not something that the Europeans had prior till the Columbian Exchange. Then the final slide you see is just some more specific things, different things that went back and forth. What you need to understand, the reason why we cover the Columbian Exchange is it still affects us today. The food we eat, the clothes we wear, how we create the clothes, how we grow the food. These are all outcomes of the Columbian Exchange. And also for you to understand that, again, this is still going on today. Today, the number one restaurant in China is Kentucky Fried Chicken. We have exported one of our ways of cooking back to Asia. Um, just like you have here, if you go to any town in America, you'll find Chinese restaurants, you'll find French restaurants. The exchange is still going on and is still creating cultural events and generating ideas and new ways of doing things even today, for good or bad. Again, I encourage you to watch the crash course video from John Green. I hope everybody's doing well, and we'll have another video next week.